Hello, today's video is called Take 5, Make 5, and the intention is to take 5 products out of your craft room from your stash and make 5 projects with them. It's all about being creative with a minimum number of products. If you're anything like me, I've got a room full of paint and pens and mediums and papers, stamps, you name it. I have hundreds, if not thousands, of individual items to choose from. And sometimes that can be a little bit overwhelming. And I think also you get in a habit of using a certain product in a certain way. And I thought it might be nice to scale it right back, just pick 5 products, and by having to just use those 5 products, think of different ways of using them to create 5 different finished pieces. Now, the pieces I'm going to make today, I'm just going to go for 5 small mixed media cards. You could do tags, journal pages, ATCs, a mixture of all of those. It's entirely up to you. But today, I had a quick look around, and don't take too long making this decision because, you know, you could spend all day rummaging around. So just have a look round and grab 5 things. I've got a pile of vintage book pages here. Just pages that I've torn out of various things in the past. I've got a stencil, a number stencil here. I think this is a Balzer Designs one. I've got my Stabilo All black pencil. That's a water-soluble pencil. Some Dina Wakley paint in Peacock. I like that nice sort of turquoise colour. And a Neocolor 2 crayon in orange. That's a water-soluble wax crayon. That's it. That's my 5 products. I've got some, this is just mixed media cards that I'm using from just taken out of a pad, Faber-Castell pad. And that's what I'm using for the base, and that'll be stuck onto a card blank. So you're free to use adhesives, you're free to use, you know, paintbrushes, palette knives, credit card, sponge, you name it, pair of scissors. Tools aren't included in this, don't worry about that. But just scale it back to 5 items, 5 crafty items. And I have no idea, I haven't practiced this. This is, you know, just grab them and see. And then, you know, just to find different ways of using a limited number of things to create different finished effects. Because, you know, it's very easy to fall into the habit of saying, oh, well, I always use my Stabilo All pencil just for going around the edge of something and creating a shadow, or I always just use my paint with a palette knife and slap it on in the background. So by thinking creatively, we're going to get more use from what we've got, maybe come up with some new ideas and techniques that you like, discover different combinations that work well together. And really just have a bit of fun. This shouldn't take too long. Don't spend hours creating these. You know, it's just quick and easy creative ideas. And I'd love it if any of you do decide to have a go at this. Share on Instagram and Facebook. Use the hashtag Take5Make5, and I'll be able to find what you've done and have a look. And that would be absolutely fantastic if some of you decide to have a go at this. So I'm going to just get myself ready to make a start. These I've just pre-cut to some sort of standard card sizes, and we'll see what happens. So let's start off with project number 1. So the adhesives that I'm going to be using today, I'm probably going to be using a little bit of PVA glue. I'm just using some matte medium just to stick down any of my book pages, just because it's the simplest way to stick them, and it sticks well and dries quite quickly. And that's going to be just dried off with my heat tool before I carry on. I'm going to take a little bit of my paint, the Dina Wakley paints. This is a heavy body acrylic, so it's quite thick, which means it can be really versatile. At the moment I'm going to water it down a little bit with some water just to thin it down. Then I can create more of a wash across the top of my card with it. This is why I'm using the mixed media card. You can use that or some watercolour cardstock. So I know it's going to take quite a beating with some wet media. Always just blot off any excess that you don't want to control the runs slightly. And once again I'm going to dry that with my heat tool. I'm going to go in with my Stabilo wall pencil. I like this pencil because you can use it just for mark making. It lays down a good colour because it's very creamy and waxy. And if you want to highlight certain words in the text, it's quite good for doing that. I'm also going to use it around the stencil. And then I'm going to go in with a wet paintbrush and blend it out. Not using the whole of the design of the stencil, just sort of fading it out from the centre outwards. And then I'm just going to take a finer paintbrush this time and add some water around the outer edge. Really gives a nice sort of inky effect, this pencil does. It's one of my favourites, and you know, they're inexpensive. They do come in a range of colours, but I have to say the black is a must-have item really to put in your mixed media stash. It's very useful. I might just blend that out a little bit there as well. Just going to give that a dry before I carry on. And last but not least, I'm going to come in with the Neocolor II crayon. And I'm just going to use it really to make some marks. I chose this colour as a nice contrast to the peacock paint. I very nearly chose like a fuchsia pink, but I decided to go for this orange. And with my fine brush again, I'm just going to blend out the circles that I've drawn at the top. But I think I'm going to leave those ones as they are. And I'm going to call that piece finished. So that's one project done. I'm going to move on to the second one. Again, I've got another square of my mixed media paper. And this time I think I'm going to use some of the paint through the stencil. Now, I'm going to use it as it comes out of the bottle this time because it's a little thicker. And I've got this is just a little offcut of sponge. And I'm going to apply it through the stencil. I haven't bothered to clean the stencil off. There still is a little bits of the Stabilo All pencil around the edges. But I don't mind. That's just adding a little darkness in there where it's mixing with the paint. Don't mind that at all. I will go and wash that off in a moment though, before it dries on my stencil. Right, so I've just been and cleaned that off, wiped the bit of paint that was on my hands away. And I'm going to come in next with the Neocolor II crayon. And I'm going to apply colour lightly to the whole area here. And just across the top. And then using just a wet brush, blend the colour. I love how vibrant these are. I use quite a few different water-soluble media, but the Neocolors, they blend so beautifully. They're really nice. So I'm going to take my book pages and I'm going to cut out some words to put on here for a bit of a fun sort of sentiment. So I'm just going to get the scissors and cut some words out and I'll be right back. Right, so I've found 3 phrases that I've cut out of my book pages. I have "No man is an island, entire of itself." Well-known quote. And once again, I'm just using the matte medium to stick these on. I then have "Can this be true?" and "Go with the flow." Let's just straighten that up a little bit. And just dry that off. And once again, I want to just edge around those. It just finishes off where you've stuck them on. And I want to just add some mark making with the Stabilo All pencil. So we have the question, "Can this be true?" So I thought some question marks would be quite nice. And again, I think I might just add some stronger colour down the side. Really, there is no right and wrong to this. Just kind of go with it until you're happy with the finished result. And I think we'll call that one done too. This time I'm going to take a rectangular size piece of card and I'm going to go back to my watered down paint I'm going to paint some stripes across my cardstock. Again, doesn't have to be perfect, don't have to be completely straight. And we'll just dry that off again. This time I'm using, this is a bit of an old encyclopedia. These books are ones that I've just picked up at the local charity shop for £1 or £2. I know some people don't like particularly destroying books as they see it, but you know, I'm thinking I'm giving them a new lease of life. These were books that somebody doesn't want anymore, and I'm putting them to good use and making them into something beautiful, hopefully. Just going to add a bit more over the top. So we'll get the stencil next, I think. And I'm going to use the crayon through it this time, the Neo Colour 2 crayon. And I'm going to go in with a bit more water and just blend this out on the outer edge. This gives quite a nice abstract effect. You can then go in with a crayon and just, with the pencil rather, and define it a little bit more. Keeping it quite sketchy. I just want to add some colour to that edge there because I don't like the fact that the big page doesn't quite reach the edge. And just want to loosely add some scribbles around there just to frame it. And a little bit of scribbly writing. Doesn't need to be legible. A legible script is nice in mixed media. I'm trying to decide whether it needs a little more yellow. Nope, that one I'm going to call done as well. I like that one. So moving on to project number 4. Clean my hands as I seem to have leaving fingerprints everywhere. And this time I'm going to get a bit more of the heavy body paint. Just taking a scrap of deli paper to work on. I'm going to flip my stencil over and put some paint actually directly onto the stencil with the sponge. Going to bring in my piece of cardstock. I'm just going to spray a little water onto the painted stencil, and then we're going to flip it over clean bit of the deli paper just to press down. I'm going to use the stencil as if it were a stamp. And that gives a really cool watercolour effect. Just going to go and rinse this off again so that the paint doesn't dry all over it. Okay, so that's been cleaned off. I'm just going to dry this off with the heat tool again. I want to use this in this corner with the Neocolor crayon, just to create a bit of a silhouette in the way we did with the last one, but I think this will be nice contrast to the way we've already used the stencil on here. But rather than using a wet paintbrush to blend the colour, I'm just going to take a baby wipe, and with the stencil still in place, just use it to blend that Neocolor crayon. So we need to get some of our book pages on here and our Stabilo All pencil. So let's just see. Just want some small pieces this time. Just going in with the matte medium again to stick these down. Any bits that hang off the edge can be trimmed away afterwards. And just dry this. And I think with the Stabilo All pencil, just going to do a little bit of mark making. And I think we'll call that one done, and we'll move on to the final piece. And say, I'm really trying not to overthink this too much. That's not the purpose of this. This is about just doing something, you know, just being quite free with the way that you're putting things on here. And for my final piece, I've left this edge on where I've torn this piece of mixed media paper out of the pad. I'm not sure whether I'm going to leave that as it is or trim it off, but I thought it was quite nice, so we'll see how it goes. And for this, I want to pretty much cover the background with my book pages this time. So using quite a bit of the matte medium and and just randomly piecing on any of the torn up bits of paper that I've got. I'm quite happy with that. It's nearly all covered. And I think I'm going to use my heavy bodied acrylic again. And this time I'm just going to apply it with a palette knife. I like the texture that you get. Going to give that a quick blast with the heat tool again. Right, so I'm going to go in with my stencil and I'm going to trace around it with the pencil, pretty much like what we did I think on the first one. I love the fact that this pencil just works on anything. It doesn't matter that whether there's paint there or matte medium. It just writes on top of it. It's really good. I'm going to go in with my Neocolor crayon. Again, these are really, really good. They just work on top of other layers. I mean, obviously, as you can see, it's a transparent colour, so the colour of the paint will show through. It's not opaque, but they are a good intensity of colour. So they do still show up really quite well. But, you know, make sure that the paint underneath is dry before you go over the top with your crayons. Otherwise, it'll just move the paint about. And I want to put a bit of water to the outer edge of this. Don't want to blend the Neocolor crayon. Just want to move this pencil about on the outside. And I just want to add a bit of the yellow colour to this side. Just dry that off. And I think I'm going to get rid of this. I don't want to cut edge those, but I think I'm just going to tear down the edge. I do like the thought that it's not a straight cut edge, but I'm not too happy about that perforation from the ring binding. So I'm going to take that off there, and I think actually I'm going to go along the bottom as well. Why not? So I'm just going to go and get these mounted onto some card blanks, and I'll be right back again with the finished project and a clear workspace, hopefully. Right, so I'm back and I've mounted my mixed media pieces onto card blanks. I've used a sewing machine to go around the edge, just because I've got my sewing machine actually out and threaded up with some black thread from a previous project. So as you can see, I've just stitched them on, but you can just glue them on, double-sided tape, however, you know, whatever you want. But I just quite like the finish that stitching gives it, and I think it works quite well with this quite free designs that we've been creating today. So here's the first one, just gone around the edge of that with a straight stitch. Same again with this one. Really like how that turned out. I like all the white space on there. This one here, I just used a zigzag stitch to go around the edge, and again it just framed it quite nicely. This one I used the straight stitch again, but I went round twice, and it just, I don't know, I like this. I like the loose watercolour effect, the dripping. I really like the finish of that one. And this one, which was far more grungy than all of the others, I've used a double stitch round the two cut sides, and then just a little bit of zigzag stitch down there on this torn corner. I'm really happy how I've managed to create 5 different looking projects with 5 very simple products, and I really hope that some of you do go on to sort of have a go at your own Take 5 Make 5 challenge. Please feel free to use the hashtag, tag me in your videos, tag me, you know, on Facebook or Instagram. I'll put my links down below, and I really look forward to seeing what you can come up with some limited supplies, and hopefully I might come back and do this challenge again with 5 different products as well and see what we can create. But for now, as always, please leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed this. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll be back again, hopefully next week with something else for you. But for now, that's all. So goodbye.